Who is Lloyd? Spyro: A Hero's Tale is the follow-up to the infamous Spyro Enter the Dragonfly, which means that Eurocom, the developers, had some work to do to save the Purple Dragon's fading reputation. They really had to pull out all the stops. Oh, but look, it's been a long time since I played A Hero's Tale, and since I just finished Enter the Dragonfly, I thought I might as well move on and see if its successor is any good now that the dust has settled. Also, it's the last mainline game in the classic Spyro timeline, which is interesting. I said the last! Spyro: A Hero's Tale features a dragon called Red trying to take over the Dragon Realms. He used to be part of the Order of Dragon Elders, but turned evil and is now spreading dark crystals around because reasons, I guess. And that's it. That's the whole plot. Previous Spyro stories haven't exactly been the most complex on the planet, but this one is about as thin as tracing paper. It does have a sweet moment at the end though. The professor has been captured by Red. Spoiler alert, I guess, but like I said, the plot isn't really the main draw here, and he has a vulnerable moment with Spyro.
How cozy.
It's the one part of the story that actually made me feel something, so look forward to it, I guess. Okay, I should probably address the mammoth in the room. The writing is completely different. Crash Twinsanity went for a more satirical, self-deprecating form of humour, and Spyro: A Hero's Tale follows right in its footsteps. The two games came out in the same year, only 2 months apart in North America, so this is either a crazy coincidence or they coordinated to make sure both Crash and Spyro were appealing to the same audience.
Spyro! You found the secret entrance to my lab. Well, I'm busy right now, so let me show you the not-so-secret exit.
Bit rude? It's not the biggest problem for me because Spyro 1 already didn't take itself that seriously, but they may have gone a tad too far in some places.
I'm at a loss, Spyro. What exactly do you need to collect?
I don't know. Light gems?
Fine. You need 8 light gems.
Alright, at least act like this stuff is important if I'm going to be spending hours of my time finding it. Also, whatever you do, don't press triangle to talk to Hunter after his first bit of dialogue.
Yeah, the door I just opened, buddy. Go through the door I just opened.
I think this kitty needs a Snickers bar. Alright, gameplay time. Enter the Dragonfly was a bit of a disaster due to studio meddling, but Hero's Tale is, and you won't believe this, a finished product. Get the champagne glasses, people, because we're celebrating tonight. No, but seriously, it was such a relief to boot up the game and realise that everything is tightly polished. The way Spyro controls is great for the most part. He feels quick and snappy with expressive animations, although I have no idea why he seems like he's just inhaled a room full of dragon smoke every time he runs. But I do have a quibble or two. First of all, Spyro's flame breath is mapped to the square button where it used to be mapped to the circle button, and now the charge button is on circle instead of square. I get the logic here because a lot of games had the primary attack on square back in the day, like Crash Bandicoot's spin attack, but you can't just change it up in the 5th game of a series, Eurocom. That's just mean. Secondly, Spyro no longer has a hover at the end of his glide. This is probably because he now has a double jump that leads into the glide, so they probably thought that the double jump was enough of a boost, but no. It feels like we've gone back to Spyro 1 gliding. It's not the worst thing in the world, but it is annoying sometimes. To be fair though, he does have a ledge grab mechanic. It's a bit finicky and doesn't always work, but it's there, which is better than nothing. I mentioned Hunter before, and guess what? You can play as him for the first time in the series. His controls are a bit slippery, and he does that irritating thing of turning like a car instead of swiveling on the spot when you want him to make him go in the other direction, and that's always fun when you're near an edge, but it's cool getting to play as him and shoot enemies from a distance with his bow and arrows. He's not the only playable character either. There's Sergeant Bird, who has mini-games that are this game's version of Speedways, Sparks, who takes part in on-rails shooter sections, and Blink the Mole. You know, Blink the Mole. Don't tell me you've never heard of Blink the Mole. Everyone loves Blink the Mole. He loves wandering underground and shooting spiders with lasers for an excruciatingly long time. I don't like these spiders. And you know what I also don't like? These Blink sections. You're supposed to find a certain amount of dark crystals and blow them up, but the journey to get to those crystals is so boring. Even worse, if you want all the collectibles, you have to do these mini-games twice, and the second time is double the length. Blink's levels aren't the only ones guilty of this. Every single minigame in A Hero's Tale has 2 collectibles to earn. The first is a dragon egg. If you collect a whole set, you unlock something cool in the extras menu. The second is a light gem, which you need to find to unlock certain doors and the professor's contraptions. Dragon eggs are useless in terms of gameplay, so if you want the more valuable light gems to progress, you'll need to play the minigames twice in a row. It's a monotonous gameplay loop that annoyed me so much that I just stopped playing them altogether. Thankfully, you don't have to play play any of them to beat the game because light gems are scattered around the main areas like candy. There are 100 in the game and you need 40 to finish the story, all of which I think you can find without touching a single minigame. There is one part where you need to play as Hunter, but it's only small, so it's not too bad. By the way, I'm not a fan of Sergeant Bird's speedways. They're not structured like previous games where you used to be able to find a clean, optimal path for completion. Here it's like the developers just chucked a bunch of targets and rings into an open area and said go. I mean, I'm sure there is an optimal path, but it's more of a faff to achieve. Sparks' levels are fine, but they don't get more exciting than that. They're just fine. And lastly, there are these bits where you operate a turret in first person. The first round isn't too bad, but the second round, oh my god, these are insane. Look at this. I didn't have the reaction time for it as a kid, let alone now. Oh, but before we move on, don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos like this. I'd really appreciate it. Also, let me know in the comments what you think about Hero's Tale. To me, this game is at its best when you play as Spyro, exploring levels and destroying dark gems in order to face the boss. Playing as Spyro is the best thing in a Spyro game, who would have thought? The gameplay loop is fun, fast-paced, and a massive improvement over Enter the Dragonfly. Except for Volcanic Isle, which I think is way too long and monotonous for my taste anyway. There are 4 main homeworlds. Volcanic Isle is the final one, but you also have Dragon Kingdom, Lost Cities, and Icy Wilderness. I think they're generally enjoyable to run around, collecting eggs and light gems and torching strangely human enemies. That's one thing I wasn't sure about actually. Quite a few of the enemies have more realistic proportions compared to the PS1 games, so it makes Spyro's world feel less fantastical. There are Norks though. Yeah, the Norks are back, and so is Nasty Nork himself. He was supposed to appear in Enter the Dragonfly in an earlier draft, but for obvious reasons he was cut. I guess Eurocom liked the idea though, so here he is. One big difference between this game and the others is how the areas connect to each other. The only portals you'll ever see are the entrances to Sergeant Bird's speedways. Other than that, there are teleport pads that can take you to any money bag shop you've discovered on your journey. This is because A Hero's Tale features interconnected maps linked by things like elevators and the Professor's ball gadget. Oh yeah, the gadgets. These are what you'll need light gems for. The Professor has placed them around each realm somehow, and they serve different purposes. The first is a ball gadget, which is used for mini-games and to travel to different areas. There's also an invincibility power-up, used mainly for optional collectibles, and the supercharge gadget, the latter of which I think you need to finish the third homeworld. At least I had to use it to finish the third homeworld. That's why you have to find 40 light gems to complete the story. Those 40 light gems activate the supercharge gadget. Homeworlds don't connect to other homeworlds though, so you need to use the Professor's teleporter to travel between them. But still, each homeworld's areas being interconnected is a cool idea. It does make the adventure feel smaller in scope, but hey, you gain some, you lose some. Weirdly enough, they turned moneybags from a British scammer into a Turkish scammer. But look, he has a shop now which sells both consumables and permanent upgrades. There are bombs for your breath types, which are hardly ever used, an extra batch of butterflies if Sparks runs out of health, and best of all, a permanent extra hit for your Dragonfly buddy, which means his most damaged colour is now red instead of green. Thing is, because Moneybags sells consumables, there are no longer a set amount of gems in the game. They're currency now, like bolts in Ratchet and Clank. It's still satisfying picking them up because they have a nice sound effect, but it makes them less impactful from a collection standpoint than they used to be. One thing Enter the Dragonfly did was introduce different types of breath. Here, they follow up on that. You get fire breath, of course, but also electric breath, ice breath, and water breath. Huh. Water breath is more of a puzzle solving thing, like activating water wheels, but it can also be useful in Volcanic Isle against fire type enemies. That's one cool thing about the game. These breaths have different effects depending on the enemy or object type. Another example are these metal strong boxes. You can't destroy them with fire, ice or water breath, but you can destroy them with electric breath, because metal conducts electricity. However, electric breath takes longer to defeat enemies, so if you want to take care of bad guys quickly, you need to use fire breath. And ice breath is just overpowered. It freezes literally every enemy without effort, and then you can charge into them for an instant KO. I think the system is pretty cool, and it allows for more varied combat and platforming than Enter the Dragonfly. Spyro has access to new moves from the Dragon Elders, who can be found in each homeworld. He'll be able to wall climb, spin and jump off poles, and use his wings as a shield, which was actually first introduced in Enter the Dragonfly. That can be useful for certain combat encounters where you need to deflect projectiles. There are 4 bosses in the game who are present at the end of each homeworld. I won't spoil them all, but just know that they're ridiculously long, even if they aren't too difficult. They take ages to reveal their weaknesses. The one you're looking at right now is Nasty Nork, who is the first homeworld's boss. A funny thing these bosses do is say how Spyro has defeated them after they take a few hits, and then they continue the fight until the next quote-unquote defeat. After the 3rd phase, they finally give up. There are checkpoints between each phase to make up for the length, but at that point, why not make them shorter and more interesting? I haven't mentioned the music yet, but I think it's really good. Not as good as Stuart Copeland's soundtracks, but still good. Spyro Spyro: A Hero's Tale is technically better than Enter the Dragonfly, but it also has more content that I flat out refused to engage with because of how monotonous it was. I'm talking about you, Blink, but also you, Sergeant Bird, and you, Walrus Guy. I knew you were a turret minigame and got the heck out of there. I also think the environments being connected to each other makes for less variety than previous games. Like I've said before, Volcanic Isle feels like it goes on forever, and I think a large part of that is the fact that it's just unappealing lava pools and then a robotics factory all the way. In other Spyro games, you'd find a whole range of environments to explore, thanks to the portal mechanic, which means that areas don't have to be interconnected in that way. So yes, I do think A Hero's Tale is a better game than Enter the Dragonfly, and it's worth playing if you're a Spyro fan, but it still falls short of the PS1 trilogy for me, or even Spyro 2 Season of Flame on the GBA, which I think is a great portable follow-up to Insomniac's formula. But I respect what Eurocom accomplished here. They had a tough job following up on Enter the Dragonfly, and they tried to revamp the franchise to get people excited about the Purple Dragon again. I just wish I liked it more, you know? By the way, why does Spyro have an Amy Rose now and a long-lost twin? Right, that's it from me. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed what you saw here, don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe to the channel. Have a great day or night wherever or whenever you are, and I'll see you next time.